Hello everyone and welcome back then guys to a brand new video, and today, as you will have probably read by the title, we are here to talk about the F1 Esports series. Now I'm hoping this video goes out somewhere fairly soon after the real life Abu Dhabi Grand Prix as well, so you know, if that race was really interesting then sorry I don't mention it here, but yeah, this was recorded before the race today. But I sort of wanted to spend today's video, you know, talking about the F1 Esports finale. Now I did make a video talking about the semi-finals a few weeks back. If you want to go check that out, I would highly recommend doing so. I probably had a better insight into that, where obviously I was there at the event, and also, you know, I helped out sort of with a few little things for that event as well. So yeah, I've hopefully, you know, you guys still go on to enjoy this video. I'd like to say, on the whole, I've probably done a fair bit of following. I don't know why I'm now deciding to start at this, but yeah, I would like to say on the whole, I've probably done a fair bit of following with the F1 Esports series. You know, it's something that's really interested me, and especially where I've had a bit of involvement with it as well. You know, I personally feel that, you know, I've probably got a bit more knowledge than, you know, the standard sort of observer of this series. But hopefully, you know, we can sort of talk today. I mainly sort of want to talk about the whole event, you know, what I felt happened, you know, what was important, what needs to be changed for next time, what worked well, what potentially didn't work so well, and then hopefully, you know, we can sort of get sort of a round summary of that. If you haven't checked out the F1 Esports finale, and I would recommend doing so, it was pretty good fun. There are 3 videos now, I think, on the F1 official YouTube page. You've got the final one, sort of little video talking about sort of what happened in that, sort of like a little highlight reel. The final 2 race, which is again sort of a little highlight reel, and then I think they've actually uploaded like a full sort of 25-minute bumper video for the final race, which in my opinion definitely was the best race on the whole, which was sort of quite good. But we'll get into that when we get into that at some point during this video. But yeah, today, as I said, you know, so I want to talk about what I think worked well, what I think could be changed. And first of all, you know, after the semi-finals, it was looking quite strong in the whole way. They had a couple of technical glitches there, obviously, in that event, and then unfortunately, as we move into the finals, technical glitches became a bit more of an issue. Now, it wasn't on any sort of degree of the Las Vegas E-race where, you know, it was giving people 6 seconds a lap, you know, extra pace, but to a degree it was probably worse, you know, the fact that the game, to be honest, I don't actually recall for sure if it was, because there's sort of a bit of an overlap, you know, the way it's run on PC, so it uses Steam, and there's sort of a bit of an overlap between sort of it saying it was a Steam network issue and a game issue, but I'm not like the biggest computer player in the world. I sort of mainly stick to Xbox a lot more at the moment. I think that's sort of an issue hand in hand, that, you know, they can't really sort of point the blame fully to the other person, so it's sort of made it a bit more difficult. You know, I think it was Beneke whose computer, he was running P4 in the first race of the series, in the first race of the finals, sorry. He was running P4, and then, yeah, his computer just crashed, and, well, I say Steam, sorry, went offline, or it, like, crashed or something. So, and where they were running on such a tight schedule for this series, they couldn't afford to restart. Now, some people will say, well, that's like racing in real Formula 1, like having an engine failure or something. One of the things that I think really sort of captivates people on esports is the fact that you have equal opportunities. You know, obviously there is an element of money to it, but nowhere near as ridiculous as real Formula 1 nowadays. But I think sort of that element of everyone, you know, has earned their right at that final race. Surely, you know, they should all be given an equal opportunity, and having something completely out of their control, you know, cost them, you know, any chance of making it through. Because the way the points worked, and I will discuss that later on, you know, if you DC or, you know, you have any issues in any of the races, really, you know, that basically just completely leaves you without a shot, you know, in any of the other races. You know, you may as well pack your bags and enjoy the rest of the weekend now after that. But I think, yeah, the first race, obviously, we had a couple of issues with that, which, you know, was a little bit frustrating to see, as well as the fact, you know, that first race wasn't live streamed. And now I get the fact that, you know, they sort of want to have one live stream, you know, a nice event, you know, towards the end of the evening after qualifying and everything. You know, you sort of want to see all of that nicely wrapped into one. But I think for a lot more of the hardcore F1 fans, you know, sorry, the F1 Esports fans, even if they live stream the Friday night, the Friday night race, you know, just, you know, not even as to professional standards, say even just a race stream, you know, with not all the other fancy stuff all around it. I think people like me, you know, I still watch that. I want to, you know, be watching as much of this as I possibly can. So it would have been nice, you know, if they had opted to live stream that the first race of the evening as well. They did the same with the semi-finals, and obviously, fortunately for me, I was able to watch a little bit of that, where obviously I was there at the event. I sort of snuck in a little look and all of that, but it's still a bit odd that, you know, that you advertise this whole sort of 3-race series and then only show 2 of the races, which, you know, hopefully next time that can be changed. But I think, yeah, moving on then into the evening's broadcast, this was sort of the main thing about the whole event. Is obviously you had sort of these 2 races. The first race, standard 25% race around Spa, and then the final race of the night was 25% Abu Dhabi race, but the point system on it. Now, I get that, you know, you want everyone to be scoring, so every place matters, but I felt that was a bit odd, the way they sort of ran that point system. It just seemed a little bit weird how it wasn't double points, and I get that because obviously all the hate they had for double points in the real Abu Dhabi Grand Prix in 2014, but running a point system where you could have seen someone get really lucky, because we've seen how inconsistent this game can be at some points. If someone had got really lucky, and say you had Brendan Lee, Donoso, and Zerner all have really, really poor races, you could have seen someone come from completely nowhere, get really lucky in one final race of the night, and completely take the whole series just because they had one good bit of luck. And I get, obviously, it's meant to be sort of a 3-race series, and obviously there is an element of luck to it as well. Obviously, there is such an element of skill that, you know, none of these guys are lucky to be in the position they're at. But yeah, to have sort of that element of the final race means so much more than the other 2. And I get, you know, it's obviously meant to sort of make the final race even more exciting. Anything can happen. You need to be going for the places. I personally, and obviously everyone will be different, but I personally wasn't too much of a fan of that. You know, I sort of want to see it sort of be equaled out a bit. You don't see, like, well, I don't know for sure, in all honesty, but you don't see in, like, Counter-Strike tournaments that the final round is worth X amount more. You get X amount more bonus money for the next round in the game or whatever. You know, it has a complete swing on the whole effect of the game. So I felt, you know, that was a little bit odd. You know, potentially next time around they could sort of rethink that just a bit, but obviously if that's what they wanted to do, then that's what they wanted to do. Now, moving on into race 2, like I said, though, it was an alright race. Unfortunately, obviously we had Chembol Bassi, who obviously was his new father, Fernando Alonso, which I think, you know, is pretty cool. I may make a different video talking about sort of that whole Fernando Alonso getting into the esports sort of thing. Where does it take the future, perhaps, with this sort of thing? Because, yeah, I personally do feel, you know, there is definitely a future for, you know, esports in this sort of aspect. And I think, but yeah, we'll get onto that in a different video. But yeah, obviously we had Chembol Bassi in race 2 that did very, very well. He had Donoso as well, who sort of kept him on his toes. You had that iffy bit in the pit lane where he sort of jumped him, and although, you know, not a particular fan of that, you know, I sort of feel that having that is a little bit, you know, sort of a kick in the teeth for the guy that does get jumped in the pitch. You know, it's a little bit, you know, it's meant to be equal cars, and obviously I get in real Formula 1 it does happen as well. But I felt, you know, obviously it's equal cars in this series. Why shouldn't they get equal pits, you know? Perhaps, even if, say, they enabled ghosting throughout the whole entire pit lane, if, you know, I don't know if Codemasters ever could, it would probably break. Let's be fair. I think if, you know, everyone had an equal chance in the pits, you know, obviously if they were changing the front wing, then fair enough, they should lose out on time and places. But I think, yeah, it's certainly, you know, I'm pretty certain it happened in the final race as well. I think Donoso managed to, Donoso didn't actually get screwed in Abu Dhabi. He pit early, didn't he? So, the Mercedes, you know, they were making big gains in the pit lanes, because if I'm not mistaken, Lee jumped Zerner in the pits even, so I'm getting my facts mixed up at this point. So it's sort of, obviously it does add that extra element again, but it sort of is a little bit inconsistent. And, you know, as someone that league races on F1 2017, you sort of want everyone to be given, you know, fair opportunity, and it should be down, you know, there's an element of luck as always, but it should mainly be down to your pace in these events. But I think, yeah, the race 2, obviously we had Chembol Bassi that went on to win that race, obviously after doing terribly in both of the other qualifying sessions. He set a worldly at Spa, like a 1:42.5 or something crazy like that, which I'm pretty certain that would place him first in the world on the Xbox platform. So, and to be able to do it, you know, at that much, you know, pressure at that moment of view, that is quite a ridiculous lap. I actually tweeted something about it. You know, if I'd set my time trial lap that I submitted for AOR, that would still only put me 5th on the grid. And these guys, you know, are doing it in front of, you know, a lot of people, you know, with a lot of pressure on the line, you know, in these events. So, you know, it was absolutely crazy for that. Then, obviously, race 2, probably I'd say, obviously we didn't get to see race 1, but I wouldn't say race 2 was a particularly exciting race. You obviously had a bit of side-by-side action, like you'd expect up at Spa, you know, obviously where it is, you know, a very, very quick track. But unfortunately, you know, it sort of left quite a lot of drivers sort of just waiting for the slipstream, and obviously same as you would in Formula 1, but you sort of want to be seeing more of those exhilarating overtakes. But unfortunately, we did have a couple of side-by-side moves up Eau Rouge and everything, but you know, that sort of, it doesn't particularly, it's sort of, you want to see, you know, racing side-by-side around corners and everything, you know, you want to make it more and more exciting. And I think, you know, race 2, it did work out quite well. I don't think there were any technical issues that I can recall from race 2. It seemed fairly okay on the whole. There were a couple of incidents here and there, you know, that obviously you expect that to happen in racing. But then we move on into round 3 of the night, and it is all been formed up absolutely perfectly. You've got Donoso, Lee, and Zerner, the top 3 on the grid, the top 3 in the championship. Whoever wins that race out of those 3 goes through, takes the title, first F1 Esports champion. You get your face in the next game, you get to go to a Grand Prix next year, you get a paddock pass or a VIP pass or whatever it was for this final race of the season. It was set up to be absolutely fantastic. Unfortunately, you know, you get off the start, it was fairly, you know, there was no big issues with that final race, well, until you get to a couple of moments later on during the stint. But I think there was actually a big crash towards the back of the field. Now, unfortunately, Dan and Fizzy did actually miss out that. I don't know if they've been told to try and avoid things like that, you know, if they have to or not. But I think, yeah, you know, they were sort of, we didn't really get to see that, and then unfortunately we saw Sonic retired from the race. I don't know if that was a rage quit or whether it was he just, I think he went back to the pits and sort of quit there because there was no chance for him, and I get, you know, he was really frustrated. But personally, you know, if that was me, I still would, you know, just driven the car around, had a little bit of fun with it. Sort of enjoy the experience whilst it lasts, and I guess obviously, you know, you're there to win. You're one of the top 20 in the world. You want to be winning these sorts of events, but sometimes, you know, if that was me, and I personally, you know, I'd still just enjoy it for a bit of fun. But obviously, yeah, we saw that, and then we sort of got a little bit later in the race, we saw Donoso do a brilliant undercut on Zerner and Lee. Obviously, Donoso basically, you know, him and Zerner were in the same car, so they couldn't pit at the same time. So Donoso pitted early, and then Lee and Zerner, you know, they had a little bit of a scrap. I think Zerner, some of his overtaking wasn't the best in the world, and I think, you know, it sort of was, there was an element of desperation for him all the way through that third race, unfortunately. And although, you know, you want to be seeing good, exciting race, doing things like that sometimes isn't the best thing to do, in my personal opinion. You know, you sort of want to just hold back, wait for the absolutely huge straight to Abu Dhabi, and although the slipstream isn't as strong as it was on F1 2016, you know, you still, you know, you don't want to see too much contact. You know, you want to see wheel-to-wheel racing, but you don't want to see too much contact. Zerner actually got into the pits in the lead, and then Lee jumped him, as I said earlier on, so it sort of, you know, added that extra element to the race. And then obviously Donoso completely undercut the pair of them, so fair enough to him. Then we saw Zerner once again go for a little bit of an iffy move on Lee down at the hairpin. Not really too sure how a lot of people felt like that. We had Lee's little finger wag, as we saw quite often through the course of that race. I'll talk about that in a moment. But yeah, obviously then we saw Lee absolutely close down the gap to Donoso. You know, if there was any man that was going to be able to do it, you know, I still say, you know, Lee probably the fair winner overall of the series. That move at the end, though, was a little bit iffy. If you have missed out, you can probably find it somewhere. Basically, he was going down the first long back straight at Abu Dhabi. He was behind and looking to the outside, and then he did a brilliant little switchback move to the inside. You can't see my hands there, but yeah, he did a little switchback move, squeezed Donoso out into the corner, and then obviously as they were about to come out the chicane, you know, it was inevitable it was going to be a crash. Donoso, in my personal opinion, did a very, very good job of getting out of it. You know, obviously he got the illegal overtake, he got the penalty. Obviously the penalty didn't really have any effect, and obviously he did give Lee back the position, which, you know, completely fair. And honestly, I saw a lot of stick for Donoso, you know, for bailing out the corner that early, but I think really that was probably a better job by him done, and I think a lot of people really slate him for that when they probably shouldn't. Now, if he'd stayed on the track and Lee had turned into the next corner, probably they would have had a crash. Zerner would have gone through to win the Grand Prix. Fair enough, yada, 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 that would have been how it would have ended. But I think, yeah, Donoso doing that probably was, in my opinion, a really, really smart and quite mature move from him. You know, I was really quite happy to see him do that, in all honesty, because it could have ended up a lot worse if he hadn't have done that. But yeah, then obviously Lee gave him the finger wag again, and then Lee just continued to give him the finger wag and continued to shake his head and continue with the finger wag and all that. Even after he'd won the race, after he'd won the series, still shaking his head, giving the finger wag. And it was sort of at that moment, you know, I wanted to see an AOR driver win, you know, obviously. being a part of AOR, and it was brilliant to see Lee win, but just enjoy the moment, buddy. Stop trying to give the finger wag and everything. Just, you've won the race, stop trying to shoot the other guy down. And I get, you know, Lee, I've spoken to him a few times before, he's a bit of an odd character, and I think, you know, we need people like him in this sort of thing to really give it, you know, even more of an appeal. But sometimes, you know, he's certainly not the most interview and camera prone person in the world. He's like, I remember doing an interview with him during the F1, the AOR part of the Esports series, where, you know, after the final race, we did an interview with him where he was fighting with another guy to try and get his place into the semi-finals. He'd already banked it somewhere else, as we found out. But I asked him, you know, what were you feeling going into these last couple of laps? He went, oh, it didn't matter. And it's sort of one of those things where, you know, he's a brilliant character. You know, he's quite funny, but he's definitely, if he wants to do it again, he needs to get some definite interview training for this sort of thing. And obviously, it is meant to be, you know, a bit of a parade and a show as well. But yeah, you sort of want to see that little bit element of that as well in there. But yeah, Lee went on to win the race, in my opinion. Certainly the guy that I felt was the fastest. You know, if there's anyone from the F1 side of things that I think can really sort of bring that extra element to the game, you know, really put it up against the sim races. Now, I think a lot of people were calling it to be Sonic, Salit, or Noble. But unfortunately, you know, I sort of thought Lee was probably going to bring out the line, you know. If there's anyone, you know, that's willing to put just that bit more time into it, then I think, you know, Lee was probably the guy to do it. But yeah, there we are then. That was sort of the recap of the F1 Esports event itself. And now I sort of want to have a little bit of a discussion about what I think worked well, what I think needs to be changed. Now, the whole sort of 40 to 20, and then obviously going to Abu Dhabi and things, you know, the whole venue, brilliant, you know, you can't fault for that. It was quite crazy, you know. All the, you obviously had Tom Deacon, who did a very, very good job, and then Jack Nichols and Davide Valsecchi, whatever his name is, I can't remember it quite exactly, you know. I think Davide, you know, he's a little bit of an interesting element. Personally, you know, I wasn't the biggest fan of that, but it's certainly, you know, it's all down to personal preference at the end of the day, and I think, you know, he definitely adds that bit of fire to it. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of the world in that. I think, you know, England is sort of, you know, when it in terms of that sort of thing, we don't really like to get, you know, all up and excited about it all the time. You know, it's brilliant fun here and there, but, you know, he's just so energetic all the time. You know, fair play to him. You know, he's a great commentator, but yeah, it's a very different style to, you know, something that I'd use, but fair enough to him. You know, I'm not going to hate on him for any of that. You know, he's still an incredible commentator, and, you know, he took it on very, very well. Jack Nichols, obviously, he's had a past in, you know, esports and sort of commentating on that thing, and that's how he sort of got to the position he's in, so fair play to him. You know, he's doing, you know, he did very, very well as well. Now, obviously, we had Johnny Herbert at the finals, you know, did quite a good job on that, and I saw a lot of hate for Matty G, WTF1, Matt Gallagher, and I think, you know, there was sort of a lot of hate, you know, towards him. You know, he was the F1 gaming guru and all that, and, you know, fair play to him for getting the opportunity. Whether, you know, I'm not going to hate on anyone for it. They all, you know, got the opportunity, and I don't think anyone did terribly, you know, whatsoever. It's a bit of an interesting call, you know, to try and get him in. Obviously, I get that WTF1, you know, is sort of trying to make this big rise with this sort of thing at the moment. You know, hop on the bandwagons whilst they can. Whether he'd be my first port of choice, obviously a very different question. But yeah, he did well. I don't think realistically, you know, he deserved the hate he got. You know, there is an element of that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you know, I'm not going to complain about, you know, his performance overall. I think, you know, everyone that over there did, you know, incredible work to make it all happen. Now, some of the things that, you know, were a little bit more frustrating, as I said earlier on, the fact they didn't live stream race 1, even if it was just more of a basic stream, still would have liked to, you know, see that happen. The code is, I support them through thick and thin, year after year, and you can only take so much. But when you're having game issues and it's esports ready, suddenly I feel coders, and I don't want to try and get into a rant about this, but coders really, really need to make the decision whether they want F1 2018 to be more career mode based or whether they want it to be online based. And I seriously hope they go for more online based, because career mode, it's at an all-time high at the moment, and I sort of feel that, you know, they want to sort of hop on that bandwagon. You know, career mode is far more popular on YouTube, but I think F1 esports could really sort of rival and overtake it. You don't see anyone doing iRacing career modes, do you? See only iRacing live against other people and things, and I really, really do hope that, you know, they try and focus the next game on sort of more online racing. It's desperately overdue, I feel, you know, that they do sort of focus more on that sort of thing, and I've tried to support them through everything, but they can't. They've sort of got to accept at some point or another that there is going to be a few issues with the game. Now, I'm not one to complain that, you know, that I want my money back and this game's terrible and I don't... If anyone honestly personally goes out and attacks or insults anyone specifically from Codemasters, then shame on you. Honestly, it's tragic. You know, why should they be motivated to make you a game if you're going out there calling shit about them permanently? Get a grip of yourself as well. You know, I'm in a bit of a different position where, you know, I didn't actually have to pay for my copy. So, you know, I don't really feel, you know, I'm in much of a position really to complain as well, because you can't really complain too much, in my opinion, about something you did get for free. But I think, yeah, certainly, Codemasters, they're certainly going to have to focus on, if they want it to be an esport game, then please do focus on the online. Obviously, that was a little bit frustrating as well. In terms then, I think the only sort of real big gripe I had overall, and this was nothing to do with, well, it sort of was, sort of wasn't, it was sort of to do with the fact that, you know, we had a lot of people hating from sort of the general F1 community. I saw a lot of complaints on Twitter, you know, that the F1 esports should have its own Twitter account, and as much as I sort of can understand why people want that, you know, it's nice to see, you know, that it has been given that dedication. Ultimately, F1 esports, it needs to build up its audience at the moment, and the best way they can do that is by trying to give it to as many people as they possibly can. Please don't listen, you know, as much as I can understand where people are coming from, I want to see, you know, that sort of stuff be tweeted on the main F1 account. You know, it's brilliant to see. And I can understand both sides of the story, but people going out and attacking the gamers, saying, no, oh, they're shit, no lives that live down in the basement all the time, that's just terrible. You're probably sat on your arse at home doing nothing as well. But then the same can be said the other way around. People, you know, that when they see comments like this and they go back and attack the people as well, you know, it's a little bit frustrating from both aspects, and it sort of just goes to prove that there is still a long way to go in this sort of thing. And obviously there is sort of that element when you're trying to merge real life with gaming as well. Obviously we had the world's fastest gamer as well, which shows there is potential for it in the future, but we shall wait and see how well it does fare. But yeah, hopefully, I think I've sort of rounded out with everything, you know, I sort of wanted to say about this video. It has been quite a long one. I've sort of quite enjoyed doing these more discussion videos at the moment. I might try and make a few more over the next few weeks and few months, you know, when big news sorts come out. But yeah, hopefully, you know, you guys have enjoyed. If you haven't already and you did enjoy this video, do not forget to like and subscribe as well. But thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to leave your thoughts down in the comments down below. But yeah, I will see you guys next time for a brand new video.